Hi guys, welcome back. It's Quinn from FabriKated Quilts, and I'm here to share some more fabulous designs with the Westalee Wreath templates and their partners, which are a natural partner with Circles. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Last time we focused on designs that use the 8-point crosshair template. So let me just share that. So this is what we used the last time, and I'm just going to mention that this one has 8 units and it can make measurements in relationship to that. So the first time when you rotate it, it can make 16, and after that you would have to split each of those, so you would immediately go to 32 segments if you kept splitting them. So we used this one the last time because the templates matched up with those numbers the best. So today we're going to be using a different crosshair. This is my 6-point crosshair right here. So let's see if we can just stick it under there so you can get a better view. And so you can see that it has a different amount of lines. Hi Nancy, hi Bonnie, hi guys. It's great, we have a good group here, so we'll keep going. So the first design that I'm going to share with you, I have to tell you a story about it. This is Wreath 41 right here, and it is a very, very pretty design. That's the one we're going to do first. And the first time I did it, I just took it out of the package and I started playing with it, and it absolutely 100% did not work. I could not make it work. I was like, what is wrong with me? So I went back to the package and I opened up the paper and I read the directions. Can you believe that? I did. I read the directions. And it said that you needed 12 marks. So the only way to get 12 marks is to use your 6-point crosshair and to make 2 sets of reference lines. So that's what we're going to do. So you can see sometimes it does pay to follow the directions, right? All right, so if we put this on here, we would just mark all of the lines, and I'll show you real quick. I've marked my center point. I'll scoot it up just a little bit so you guys can see. So right there. So once you make the 6 lines that you might need, say we did it like this and we marked all of these, you're going to take the line that's in the middle, the white line, and you'll line that white line up on the marks that you've already made. And then that will put a line right in the center of that. And so when we made the first set of lines, we had 6, and when we traced this second set of lines, that's how we got 12. So these are the 12 lines that we have. We're going to go ahead and put our pin in. I do like to mark by putting the pin first through the top and making a reference hole on the back. And then it's a little bit easier to find where you need to be. You can see that I have the hole right there. And I think it's much easier to do that. And then I'll look on the front and try to make sure that I'm actually going to go through the correct hole on the front. So I'll give it a little smush. See if I can get it in there a little better. It's falling out. All right, so pretty good. All right, and I'll put that right on there. Let's show you the template up close real quick. I'm going to put something behind it. All right, here we go. I want you to be able to see these markings really well. So you've got A, B, C, and D, and you've got the reference markings for as you go around. And notice right here, can you see I didn't read directions very well? 12 rotations. This is the 5.5 size. We are putting it in a size area that will fit the 7.5, and we're going to show you another way to use this after we make the first bit of the design. So we'll do the base wreath in this 5.5 size, and then we're going to move up and we're going to do some additional designing with the next size up in the template. Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll get started. All right, I think if you remember last week, we're lining it up on the crosshair, and I like to start right down here at C, right at the base. Oh, let's see, we're going to need a little longer tail to pick up our baby. There we go. All right, right, we'll get right in there. Make sure that we're lined up on our line. I'm looking right back here to make sure I'm right on the line. And then we'll pick up that thread. We'll get all of these out of our way. All right, you guys, so my foot is set at the correct height, and I've checked my tension. I've done all of the pre-preparation for going ahead and starting. And notice I've got my stable tape grips on, so I'm holding here, which is giving pressure up at the top on both sides. And if I need a little more pressure, I can put some right here. But initially, I want to hold that thread for a few stitches. Okay, so there we go. Here, just go around the curve gently. Now I'm going to go back to C because I like that double stitching, and we talked about that last week. Then we need to go to D. The only way to rotate the template is to go to D. And where you can stop is right on your crosshair mark. So I'm going to move this, see if we can get this out of here so we can share that with you. So right there, the needle is lined up right there. And that's where we need to stop when we sew back to D. And that's going to give us that circle on the inside. See if we can get them back on there, right? I made things difficult, didn't I? But we got to let you see. All right, so I'm going to turn it a little bit so we can have more of the ruler in view. So I'm going to answer the question. Peggy Lee asked if I have a stitch regulator. Peggy, I do have a stitch regulator, and my stitch regulator's name is Kate. I'm regulating the stitches and working hard to make sure that they look appropriate. And the way that I do that is I'm listening to my machine to try and have a very regular, smooth sound. So right now, I've lined this line up on my crosshair line right here, and I've got the reference line right here. So I'll tip it a little bit so you can see the little reference line right there. I'm going to make sure that that's lined up on that first lobe, and note now that I am back at that C right there, so now I can start coming back up. So I'll come back up to the top, and I'm going to stop right at A. I have a tendency to want to go past A for some reason, but don't do that. Just stop. So you'll go ahead and you're going to come over to D, and right there, that crosshair line is your reference line where you're stopping at D. So you have a nice strong visual there, and you can, manipulate your fabric. Try to make sure you're right on the crosshair line because that is the important part. If you need to smush this, you can manipulate the fabric just a little bit in order to make sure that you're going to hit right where you need to so that the wreaths touch each other. Each lobe will touch. So we'll get a nice double stitch on this, which will really give the wreath a lot of great definition there. And then we'll go back to D. All right, so looks we need to check our reference lines there, so I'm going to try to make them match up a little. A little smushing is a good thing. Sometimes people will ask me, why is that smushing necessary? If the template is so accurate, why does that matter? It's kind of important sometimes to smush because right now as we sew these lobes, they're drawing the fabric in. They're pulling it into this space with each one. So sometimes over time, it's going to start drawing the quilt up a little bit. So we may have to just manipulate a little bit. And the reason that we need to manipulate and have this aligned, this is the 1/4 inch space right here. So if we're not lined up, there's a possibility that either this will stick out or that it will not touch when I sew up. And then that means that the wreath will not have that nice clean look that we want it to have. A, and then we'll go all the way back down to the bottom, and we'll come over to our crosshair line.
So Pamela asked, where do you keep your speed control?
So, Pam, that is a good question, and it does change for everyone. So I have been sewing a really long time, and I keep mine all the way up. But that is because I can hear the sound, I can feel how much pressure that I need to do. For a lot of people that are starting out, I do recommend that you start somewhere in the middle of your speed control. And then what you want to do is if you feel like you're anxious and you can't control the stitch at that speed, then you want to slow it down. So if your stitches are very, very tight together, very, very small, what that means is your machine needs to go slower because it's taking too many stitches in the amount of travel that you're doing. And if your stitches are large and they're far apart, they look, really big, then you need the machine to go faster so it will take more stitches in the same amount of travel. And those are the basic guidelines. And then as you get more confident, as you get more experience, then you'll see that perhaps you will want to change your speed. Your speed really has to match you. It's not so much that there's a magic number or guide or spot. It has to match you. So if you listen to me, I can go faster, but then I know that I'll have to move a little faster. So if that's not comfortable, then I can make the machine go slower so that I can go slower.
So Nancy asked, could you clarify or explain, what do you mean by smushing again, please?
Okay, all right. So let's see if we can get in a little closer here. Let's see, I'm going to try and get us down just a little closer so we can see a little better. Okay, so right now I have 2 points of alignment on this design. I have this reference line on the template, the straight line, and I have this curvy echo right here of the shape. If I line it up, I want to be on the crosshair, so that is first. Notice how this doesn't quite match right here. It's not quite aligned, okay? And I need that. I need these to line up. So I know this is aligned, so here I can just go like that. And now, see how they're lined up better? And there, I'm still on the crosshair line. This is important because if we don't line it up on the crosshair, we'll never make it back to the beginning where we started. So just a little tug. I'm not bending the needle. I'm not trying to yank on the fabric. I'm just giving a little manipulation so that the lines will match up. Okay? That's a good question. Thanks for asking that. Sometimes I say smushing and I think people know what I'm talking about, but maybe they don't. All right, so we'll try to get this design in here because we want to go ahead and show you the beautiful echo that we can make with this one. It's really pretty. So on this template, I'm going to give you a little tip as we're sewing. Right here, we're kind of going on an outside curve as we go around and we come back. You always want to slow down when you have an area like that. It's easy when you're kind of dipping in, but when you're coming on an outside curve like this one, it feels a little like a mogul or, on a ski jump. You come this way and you're like, whoa! So here you want to sew a little slower and think, hug the curve, because it will feel a little bit different right there as you go. And if you just think about slowing down and making sure the foot's touching right there, you'll have a more successful curve right there. All right, so we'll get ourselves all lined up. So here it lined up really easily. I didn't even have to do anything. Get to our midline. I'm going to try to move some of these little threads out of our way. Make sure that we don't end up stitching over them. So just a reminder, this is wreath number 41. So I'm just going to manipulate the sandwich a little so you guys can see. And again, looks like I have 2 lines right here, but I'm pretty sure it's this bold line. So I'm going to manipulate it just a little just to make sure that I can be on the right crosshair line. So you can see right there how it kind of feels a little different when you hit that outside curve area. All right, we're almost to our last one. We just have 2 more to go. So I don't know if you just saw what happened is when I was at D, I had to sew back to C. Right here, notice how this stitch is past. I had to sew back to C because otherwise I wouldn't be touching the ruler in the right place. So that is kind of important to make sure that you're touching at C. So if I rotate that and I'm not all the way hooked in there, then I'll want to make sure that I sew backwards to make sure that I'm in the right spot before I start that lobe. So here's the last one, and right there, that's the 1/4 inch, so I'm going to sew in right there. And because I double stitched all the other ones, I'm going to sew to A, and then I'm going to sew back. And notice right there, you can tell, let me show you. See there's the gap right there? I'll point to it right here. See how there's some space? So I'm going to sew back on the bottom there until I get to C, just to make sure that I'm following the template all the way. Touch. Come all the way back down to the bottom, and we'll close up the design just like that. And we'll just put a few extra stitches in there just to make sure that we're tied off. All right, so right now I have pulled my sandwich, which is lengthened my bobbin, and I'm holding this top thread right here. You can see I'm just looping it over my fingers. I'll go ahead and I'm going to bring the needle right back where we left off, and I'll release that pressure, and right there, if I pull both of those sides like that, there is my bobbin loop right there. So once I cut that, we'll be disconnected, and we'll have our bobbin on the bottom also disconnected, and we'll be ready to stitch our next one. I like that because that means I don't have to flip my sandwich over, and I get all of the threads up on the top. So if there's a little thing right there, I'll just snip him off. Isn't that the cutest design? Love it. This template is great also for putting some veining in there in between. I usually do the full wreath first, and then I will offset it a little bit and just kind of put a little feather in there. But what I want to show you with this one is how we can do a really pretty echo by using a second size. So I told you before, this is the 5.5 size. You can see right there at the top with 12 rotations. And now I'm going to show you how we can put the echo in. So here's the bigger one, right? So this is 7.5. We know it'll sew bigger, but we don't want to mess up the wreath that we have. So how do we get it where it needs to be? Darn it, I took my pin out. Sorry about that. Let's make sure we get him back in the right spot. Perfect. Okay. So let's put him on. And we do want to line up on the same crosshair, okay? So we do want to touch, so we're going to pick up our thread right where we've left off at the base here. So that'll help us get our needle into position.
Is this template in the Fun and Fancy collection?
So most of the templates that we've done the last couple days are not. There is no wreath that is in the Fun and Fancy collection, but you can always integrate templates one to the other. So let me show you where we're going to be right here. We'll start up at the top right there, sorry. Oh goodness, I got my thread in the wrong spot. Okay, let me show you. See this little line right here? We want to start actually there, and then usually I'll go down, but we'll just start down here since we're already set up. You'll see that I'm going to end up double stitching that side, so it'll all work out, it'll all quilt out. So I'm checking my reference line. Now I'm just going to sew to A. And now I can just scoot that over. Notice how we'll be lined up right there, just like we talked about, and we'll be on that crosshair line. So here is where I want to complete this bottom part of the line. I'm going to go ahead and stitch down and up. And the reason that I chose this path is then this is going to be smooth. We're not going to sew part of it and then part of it later. This will allow you to have the template in position the whole time, and you're going to A. And then we'll just move this and get ourselves seated on the next crosshair line. And now we'll complete this bottom part right there. Down. We'll go over to A and stop. And you've got all the same reference lines that we had before. You've got the crosshair mark right here. And let me show you right there. You're right on the reference line right there. So remember to go down first. That's what closes that petal. Go down. And then you'll go to A. Get lined up again on all of your points. We're right on the reference line and on the crosshair line here. I always want to go forward, but I have to remind myself, go down first. Close the lobe. Get right into A. And you'll just keep getting yourself aligned each time, and that'll help you have your design perfectly spaced so that when you get back to the beginning, you'll be all set. Down, touch, so we'll get lined up, a little smushing right there. Stitch until you touch. Back to A. And we'll get right on our crosshair line. I so want to go forward across the top of the template. I always have to think and remind myself each time to go down. Now, if you didn't want to go down, I'm sure that there's other ways that we could play with this template and change the design up a little bit. So just go, from that point. You could start right here, and you can just go across the top and turn and go across the top, and then there would be no line that came down. And then that would be just an open echo of that design. So that would be just another way that you could use that design. So there's a lot of flexibility and freedom to you being able to make the design how you want it. There's not really a rule that you have to do this or that. So one of the things I often will say, and I know you guys, many of you have heard it before, it's important to play and practice before you stitch it out. So if you want to play with it on paper, that can give you an idea if your path is going to work and if you're happy with how it looks. So, and it looks like I need just a few more stitches just to close that up. So I'm just going to let it close right there. And I'll just tack this off. And since we have the double stitch right here, I'm just going to put a few extra stitches right in there, so that that'll make it just like the other ones. And then we'll tack it off right here. Needle up, presser foot up, and we'll line everything back up right where we left off. And then we can pick up that bobbin thread right there. And we'll cut everything because we're all tied off. So right now I'm going to check with my production manager. I'm going to check with Honey and see if there's some questions that we want to answer as we go.
So a couple technical questions. What kind of bobbin casing are you using?
So I am using the bobbin case that came with my machine. It's not a special free motion one, but I believe that there is one for this machine. I have just adjusted the tension to fit, and here's the design that we came up with. And so notice that when we crossed over, we stitched this line. So right here, we were lined up with the template markings. So let me show you real quick. So right there, we're lined up with this marking. So if our foot started in line with the needle here, we could just go across and rotate, and we didn't even have to stitch this part of the design. So you could end up with an echo like this, but with no lines if you wanted to do something else out here. So I hope I answered the bobbin case question. I just have a regular bobbin case, and I've just adjusted my tension to fit. But all of that is really going to depend on your machine. Most machines have the ability to, adjust your tension for your tension setting without adjusting your bobbin case. But if you feel more comfortable with your machine with a special bobbin case, then if it works, that's what you need. So don't feel that you have to have that unless you just have tried everything else and it's not working. Then maybe that is a good option for those people that need that.
And what batting is that?
So let's see, I just have a regular batting. This is actually Hobbs 80/20. It's cotton polyester, and I do have it spray basted. It's a little sticky, spray based right there. I do actually use 505, and you can see it's pretty nice and flat, and it does hold pretty well, and it does wash out very easily. So definitely something I like to use. I like not having pins that I have to manage when I'm working with templates, because I wouldn't want to have to take this pin out while I'm stitching along a templated line and maybe manipulate the sandwich and mess things up. So anyway, there's our design. So this is the 5.5 Wreath 41, and then this is Wreath 41 at 7.5 to create that pretty echo that we've done. And you can see that fills up that space very nicely. So, okay, let's move over to this corner. So last week we talked about the 8-point crosshair, and we had some templates that had 24 rotations, like this one. That's a lot of rotations. And if you remember, I think it was Shanna that asked, how do you align that if it has some odd number of rotations like that? And so, for example, this one that I'm going to show you right now, this is the one we're going to sew out. And this one has 18 rotations. So we can't easily use an 8-point crosshair to make any references for that. But 6 is an easy number that goes into 18. And so if you can see how I've marked it, if I line the template up, I can do 1, 2, 3, and then this starts that 1 again. So a 3-section unit for 1 pie wedge on a 6-point crosshair. Then we have another reference line. And I would do that, because what happens if we don't put any reference lines in at all? Then even if you're lining up on the markings on the template, by the time you get back to the beginning, it could be off much more. But if we're self-correcting for each pie wedge and making sure that we're on the line for each pie wedge, then this will already self-correct right here. And then if this is off a little bit, it'll self-correct right there. So that by the time we get back to the beginning here, we have a much greater chance of accuracy and getting ourselves back to the beginning with a beautiful balanced wreath. So let me show you how that's going to look. We'll get our marking tools. So I've already marked my little center line. I've got a little dot right there. And I don't know if you can see, but I'm also going to try to just make this line the same amount of distance so that it's nicely spaced and not wonky in there. All right, so let's get our marker. So remember now, we have 18 rotations, but we are only going to make the 6 reference lines. We're not going to make a million because that's not really of any use to us. It's not going to help us. 6 is all that we'll need for 18. And if you had one that had 24 rotations, which some of the wreaths do, then I recommend using the 8-point crosshair, and then that would still be every third, every set of 3 will be on a crosshair line. Alrighty. And let me show you else too. Right here on all of our templates, we usually have some type of little design that shows you how it's going to look. One of the things that's unique about this one is that he has a big opening in the center, which allows for a lot of fun designing possibilities by putting something else in the center. So we'll talk about that after we finish him up. So make sure that your stable tapes are on the bottom and that you can read your letters to make sure your template's upright. The reason that that's important is that the lines are etched here on the bottom, and if we use them this way, let me just lay it on here real quick. See if we can get them up for you. Let's get a really good look. Really get down in there. Alrighty, see if we can show you right there. So what will happen right here is if this line is on the top, he'll cast a little shadow. So if we try to line him up, do you see the shadow right there? It's really faint because I've got a lot of light from all directions. But you'll see that if we use the templates upside down, a lot of times that will cast a shadow. Now we do have some templates that are specifically designed to be used on both sides, and when that happens, it's fine to use them, of course, on both sides. It just means that you'll have to manage that little shadow so that you can make sure you're lined up. I always have to get a nice long tail. You'd think he'd be long enough to be pulled up, but he was being ornery. All right, so we're back on our reference line. And let's pick up our bobbin thread. And that way I can just hold it for that first stitch. Make sure we have a nice clean start to our design. Now I'm at B1, and I've shown this last week when we did it. The way that I like to do the template is I'm not really going to worry about the letters so much, but I like to start here and sew the whole lobe and then travel to B. And that helps the inside circle be a little bit cleaner, and it gives me a strong double stitching on the outside of the feathers or the fan or the wreath. And I like that. I like having a lot of extra stitching out on the outside, because then it gives it more presence out here. So these will all be double stitched, and just this interior area will be a single stitch. So let's adjust so you can see what we're doing. Let's make sure we have a good camera view too. All right, we got you all tightened up. So you can see that it's got a front and a back reference, and we're at B, and now we can just line this up right here. So that's 1. And there's no reference line here, so this becomes really, really important that we have it lined up just so. And now we'll come to B, and now we can rotate, and remember, getting yourself lined up really, really well, right on the reference lines. That's the important part for this. All double stitched, and now to B. Now that's 1, 2, 3, and as we line up this one, now we need to line it up here. Every group of 3, then you'll restart lined up on the crosshair mark on your 6-point crosshair. Okay, rotate. Now remember, reference line is what's important because we have nothing else here for these next 2. And then there's our B, which is part of our circle. And getting lined up just precisely. And then we'll be back on our crosshair line, so we want to make sure that we're aligned both here and here. Those are your 2 pieces that you need to check on every 3rd one. All right, so we're going to adjust it just a little bit so we can keep you guys in view. So there's a little smushing going on right there to get him right where he needs to be. And that there's no overstitching. What we're doing on that inner area, which is something that'll help keep that center part of the design really clean, which I like. And all of the double stitching that we're doing, the template isn't moving in between that, so that helps keep the outside really looking beautiful as well. So there's our reference line right there, and we'll make sure that everybody's lined up. And you'll notice that I am kind of holding a lot of pressure out here on the edges. This is pretty much where I put my stable tapes, and that's where this pressure is. Even if I'm not holding right there, I'm compressing this corner, and that's helping make sure that that stable tape is activated and working. Here, make sure you're all the way into the hook. I think sometimes as this one curves around, you think that you're all the way there, but make sure that the foot is all the way touching, because that will impact where it's going to hit the next lobe, whether or not it touches, whether they're connected or not. All right. So yeah, this one has 18, which tells you what? It's going to take a little time for us to get around to the end because he has a lot of lobes. But so worth it and so pretty. All right, so we'll just keep going. We'll try to get it done quickly so you guys aren't just hanging around. It has kind of a mesmerizing effect though, doesn't it? So Leonie West designed these, and they are really beautiful and so wonderfully accurate to be able to get the beautiful designs that we want to do, that level of precision that we want to have. So we have one more reference line right there. We're on this crosshair line right here. And being able to use these crosshair reference lines as we go, you can really see how important that is so that we can have the precision and the accuracy that we want to have and really make the design look quite beautiful instead of having something wonky going on. Nice and easy. Now, let me show you something. Let's go ahead and turn this just a little bit so we can show you this last piece. So typically with the wreaths, what you'll see is a little bit of a reference line on each side. And that's really important when you're getting to this last bit. So this is where your smushing can make a really big difference to make sure that right there you're going to end and you're going to touch right there. So I'll give this just a little slight tug so that he's lined up right there. And this is the final lobe in our design. So I'm just going to go till I touch. There's no reason to cross the line there, even if he can. You don't want that. And then we should be finished. So let me just check real quick and make sure that we made it. Let's see if we didn't miss. Oh, I think we did miss this B on this one. So we definitely want to get lined up and finish that. There we go. Oh, I went wonky there. That happens. We'll just go with it. Needle up, foot up. We're going to lengthen that bobbin thread. Give ourselves a little space to get our foot right back down in there. And we'll pick up that thread. There's that bobbin thread right there. We'll just cut him so that we're free. I'll try to make him a little longer though, so I don't have to work so hard. And then let's take this off. So this was our starting threads and our ending threads. So we'll just kind of get all of those off of there. Isn't that pretty? And that is a big, beautiful open space that you can do anything that you want to do. Even something just as simple as a basic fill. So here's just an idea of something you might want to try. Just putting in a little spiral fill in here can be just a really cute little way to put some extra texture in here. And this was done just by putting a simple circle that was smaller than this. And so that is lined up on the crosshair to give the same distance around. And you could put successive circles in there and different fills if you wanted to. This offers a lot of design potential because it has that big open space. So this is a really fun one. This is number 13, I believe. Number 13. All right, so we've already done 3. You can see how quickly that those went, right? I mean, they went pretty fast. So let me show you what's next. So last time, let's see, we used this template. This was at 8 point right here. Let me show you. This is number 11. And this is how it sews out, and it does have that circle. So what am I doing here with this thing? So I want to show you some fun ideas. So here's one that I have for you. This is the one that we just did, and that's concentric circles. And then you're just putting the needle right in the center, and you're just making an arc to the different crosshair marks like that. And this is something that you can do, you know, just for play, just to put a different center in there. But the one that we're going to show you right now, I'm going to keep this up here so I can show you the next one. This is a wreath template right there, but it's not used as a wreath. So always with our templates, there's always more than one way to use it and to design with it. So my little center circles were just put in there in order to give a reference right there so that I have a center to my flower. So I just marked those off and stitched those out right away. And now I'm going to show you how you can make these lobes on here and make something else. Just because it says that it's a wreath template, it doesn't mean that you have to use it the way that it says. So the way I've got it set up is I still have the center dot, so I'll just mark that because that's kind of a little visual marker right there. And I can line it up that way, or I can line up the crosshair line right there. And I can start with my foot right there on that circle. We'll just get him in there and get him lined up, and then he can help us figure out right where we need to be. So I want to put my needle right in the circle, so I'm going to look inside that little opening and maybe manipulate it just a little bit so that I can make sure that I'm right where I need to be. So we'll pick up that bobbin thread. Oh, looking for my tweezers. There we go. And now we'll get ourselves right back there where we started. All right, and we'll sew this first lobe. And we can put a little echo in there if we want to, but I think we'll go ahead and we'll make all of the individual lines first. So we'll skip.
Move your camera, baby.
Oh, okay. Thanks, guys. Sorry about that. Let me get you back in line. All right. So just to show you where we were right here, and we were lined up on the crosshair lines. So I'm just going to scoot this out of my way, and I'm going to sew on the circle that I made. Just nice and slow, and I'm going to go to the next one. And then I can just get him lined up, and I'll sew the next one. just to give myself some room to move, I'm going to scoot the template up. I don't have to take him out. And I'm just going to skip one crosshair line each time. And then just line it back up. Okay, so you'll have to move him out of your way. And you can see how this would change if you use different crosshairs. Then you could have different amount of lobes, more lobes. You can have whatever number you want to have. It's totally up to you. And then if you just turn it just a little bit, it'll make it a little bit easier to see where your line is. I'm looking right down the foot, down right there, so that I can see my thread from the stitches underneath. Remember to skip one, go to the next one. Oh, did I mess up? I better skip, right? I can hear my bobbin is making some funny noises. Oh, yep, sure did. Let's see what's going on down there. It has a little funny sound to it. So real quick, I'm just going to pull on this bobbin thread and make sure he's still inside the track of where he's supposed to be. Oh, he sounds good. Maybe he had that little yellow thread in there, bugging him. All right, so let's see where we are. So there's our next line right there. So we'll get ourselves reseated right there. So, and I won't tie him off right here at the beginning. I'm going to end up sewing right back to him, so that'll help tag him off and make sure that he's nice and tidy. Okay, and then we'll scoot, skip, go to the next one. So if you have trouble traveling, what you can do is go ahead and free stitch around the circle, and then after you finish the design, you can put the circle back on, and then you can clean the circle up by sewing around your actual template. So let me show you real quick what we have before we put some embellishments on there. So this is the flower that we have so far, and I want to put a little bit more in there, so let me show you some things that you can do. So we'll tack this off. We can actually sew up the flower, but I think I'll just go ahead and cut this so we can reposition and show you some other ideas. Ooh, there we go. Lots of thread everywhere. All right, so the way that I did the next embellishment is I wanted to put a little echo in there. So let's play with it and see how we can decide what the echo is going to look like. We are not trapped by this. We don't have to make him do anything. You know, there's no pin. So I can manipulate him to fit wherever I want. And then once I decide where I want, I can go ahead and put some markings in there to help me. So I want a little bit of an echo out here. So I can just move him over however much I want. And then I'll make a little tick mark where he's going to touch when I line him up. So let me show you what I mean. So this is a vis-a-vis marker, and I'm also going to use my spacing gauge right here to help with the accuracy. So let's see. So we'll do something like that. That'll give us a 1/4 inch echo. So right here, we're going to have him touch the center right there. We'll make a little dot. So every time that we line it up, that green dot will be on the center. And right here is on the crosshair, right there. Okay? So we just randomly made some little visual reference lines. You can make whatever reference lines you want to make. It's totally up to you. Nobody is going to be telling you what to do. The only reason that I did that is I want to be able to try to replicate the same shape as I go around. So I need some reasonable visual where I can line things up each time. Okay, so here we're lined up. We'll put this little echo in there. And we'll come back up to the top. And we'll use this as a reference line, and then we'll just kind of see if we can hop over. So now we're back onto this, so we may have to kind of sew up a little bit. And now we can try to get him lined up again. So we want this. So let's see, we came a little too far. I think we have to go down a little bit more. So I'm just following the line so I can get my green dot over here, and then I'll pull him forward. And this guy right here, remember we said he should be kind of right in the middle of the lobe. And so now we have this echo. And we kind of came right up to right where this mark is. And then we just hopped over. We just pulled him over so we have enough room so that we can cross over. So I'm going to turn it just to show you how that looks. Let's just pull this off so you can kind of see what we're doing. So doesn't that look cool? So it's not about it being like super perfect, but you can see you're going to get a little echo here and a little echo. So this is the main lobe, and then I'll do some micro quilting here. And I'm actually going to come back in with maybe my oval, and I can just echo around all the outside of this design. And then you've got this really cool center, and you've got places to fill, and it looks completely different than if you were doing the wreath. I mean, it's very much a flower. And it's got a lot of flexibility for you to be able to design it however you want. So I always like to try to show you how to use your templates for more than one way. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to answer some questions, and then we're going to show the partner templates and how they can be used for different things. So, honey, any questions?
I don't think so.
All right.
We're pretty much caught up.
All right, well, good. So throw your questions out here, guys, because we can totally help you. So I'm going to just stop here, and I'll go ahead and tie it off, but that's just one idea for how you can use this totally different. And remember that those marking lines, you can always put in as many marking lines as you need so that you can line things up and get the design that you want to do. Remember that those are just water-soluble marks. I'll say again, I do use this vis-a-vis marker, flip it over. So it's a water-soluble marker, but it's not dry erase. So if I have my template right here with those markings on there, it's not going to rub off on my quilt. So I never recommend dry erase, only the wet erase. And then when I'm done with whatever my design is, I can just wipe those off with a paper towel. And I can make, you know, millions of marks or fewer marks, lots of marks, whatever I need to get the design that I want to have. All right, I think we're done tying that off. I think I already did that. There's my bobbin thread again. So we'll just cut him. And you'll see the bobbin thread will just kind of go away, and then these are the top threads, and I can just cut those. And then that design is all stitched and tightened up. All right, so let's get our original sample back out. All right, so last week we did this beautiful center wreath. This center one is wreath number 15, and it does not come with an echo built in. So right here, I just wanted to reiterate that I used just another template like that. And I just used that, and I used my crosshair reference lines as my stop point. And then I just put it on this one, and I echoed it. And then I put it on this one, and I stopped at each of these crosshair lines, and that's how I got this really cute 1/4 inch echo. So you can use whatever you have, whatever templates that will approximate the shape. This is almost like a circle, but it's a little bit narrower. So I think a circle could also work if you could find one that fits, and then I just tried to lay it right on the stitch line as much as possible. And if it doesn't fit exactly, let me show you a little tip. So on this one, as the foot sewed up, I was touching on this side, both here and here. And then notice how it doesn't quite fit on that side if I'm touching here. So what I did is I sewed to the top, and then I scooted over like that, and I sewed down, and then I lined it up on the one side there like that, sewed to the top, and then I pivoted and I sewed down to the bottom. So just a simple little manipulation like that can give you this beautiful echo on here with, you know, hardly any work at all. All right, so let's put our pin back in the center here. So I think that Circles on Quilts is a really practical and amazing tool to use with these wreaths because they both pivot so nicely. So I have already done a little pre-measuring, and you can see that, let's see, right here. So I've got a little bit of space, but not a lot, but I have enough space that I think that my 12-inch will fit right on there. And I measured from the center out, so it's a pretty perfect fit. So I'll stick it on there. Oh, sorry, I need a little better view here. Get it right on that hole. And I can test it too. You know, when you bring the template around, I think it's going to be just inside this circle right there, which is totally fine, just what we want. All right. So we'll hold for those first couple stitches, just get that in there. And he should be able to fit right in there without any trouble. He's not going to end up crossing over. How we can put a little embellishment in here and define these shapes. So with our Circles on Quilts, pick a side of the channel, pick the top or the bottom. So let me orient my camera just a little bit so you can see better. So whenever we're sewing with the Circles on Quilts, this channel is just a tiny bit bigger than a 1/2 inch. So the ruler foot is a 1/2 inch, and this is a tiny bit bigger. And the reason for it is if it just fit perfectly, then be.
So it looks like the video is stalled, what people are saying.
Yeah, I think we are maybe having some video issues.
Coming in and out.
I'm just going to keep broadcasting, and if it has trouble, we'll go ahead and we'll repost this saved video afterwards. So I appreciate you guys sticking with me. So I'm going to ride my ruler foot on the outside of the channel here. Just pick a side, whichever side, don't bounce back and forth. Just stay on the inside or the outside, whatever your personal convention is, whatever you're comfortable with, just stick with that. And what that'll do is when you get back to the beginning of your circle, that's when you'll have the cleanest look. So I just kind of come to the end as much as possible. Now with our circles on quilts, this is the 12-inch size. So this one is the largest size. So I'm not going to be able to put any echoes around this particular circle right here. So we're just going to put this as the center, and all of the other ones around the outside are the ones that will intersect. So we'll show you how we're going to do that little intersection thing. Oh, we want to keep you in view, don't we? It's kind of a big design, so it's hard to show you all of it at once. All right, so let's close this up. So it looks like I got off a little bit. I'm going to try to fix it here. See if we can clean that up a little bit. There we go. So we'll get that out of our way. I think I was worried about our transmission, but it'll all work out. It's easy to fix. We're going to put so much quilting in there that it won't matter. All right, so let's cut some of our threads right there. So what we want to do now is, I'm going to show you just on one of these designs how we can make these have an echo and have little channels to fill. So right there, there's going to be a 1/4 inch gap. So I think what we would want to do is echo this right here to kind of come really close to this so there's not any space right there. This is a 1/4 inch. So if we go whatever this size is, we'll put the circle template on so it'll just cut right there, and that'll close this center design and give a little echo, and then we'll put some echo lines that will stop right out here. So this one was already echoed with a straight edge. You can see we went ahead and we echoed this design so that we weren't designing right up to the wreath. So, all right, let's put that pin in. And let's find the correct size. So the one that I was using was the 12-inch wreath. So what we can do now is we can just put this on and see what fits. So this was 6, and if we want to be a 1/4 inch away, then we need 6.5. That's the next size up that we have. So we'll find that, which is the even by half, and we'll put that on. So here, when we start, we're going to start so that we're touching the circle right here. Let me see if I can get you in a little closer. So this is the circle right here that we've already stitched right there. And this one is going to intersect that right there. So we're actually going to sort of make it touch right there. So we pull that thread up so he's right in line with that existing circle. I'll kind of get this out of the way so we can get him there. So I think I'll seat the foot right where I want it, and then I'll set the ruler up against it. So let's get some of these babies off of there. It gets heavy when you have so many rulers on there. All right, so let's go ahead. We'll tack. So this should give me just a 1/4 inch echo, and hopefully that'll get us really close to the edge of this star. So it's not touching, but that's okay. It's just going to be where the design is so small right there that there's nothing else we're going to try to put in that space. You know, we can't put any like free motion fill in there or something because it's really only about 3 or 4 stitches in between. So notice that as I'm going around, my sandwich is going to stay this way. I don't have to tilt it or anything else. I'm just going to go ahead and push it right, push it left, pull it towards me, but I'm not going to spin it around. So this one will come right in to the existing circle, and that's where we'll stop. And we'll just kind of tack it right there with some small tacking stitches. Now, we want to put another echo in so that we can put those fun fill designs in there. Every one of these is 1 inch. So if we want a bigger space, then we would have to make an adjustment. So anytime you go up right here, it's going to make that 1 inch space. Even though it's two numbers, it's 6.5 to 8.5. The relationship on the circle is just going to be 1 inch. So we'll just hop over and we'll stop right in the circle right here. So we'll tack that a little bit with a few stitches. Make sure it's secure. Ooh, so close. Perfect. Now, if it did hit that area, I would just stop right when it touches, and I would just tack it off, and then I would just move the circle around a little bit more until it stopped touching, and then I would just pick the circle back up. And that way, I'll show you what we're going to do that right here. So here, right there, we want to tack this so this is completely secured. We'll just pick up the needle and we'll just move the circle a little bit more. Let's see, I think we will have to put a little tiny closure in there, right there, little tiny close. So that the circle will look like he continues. Pick him up. Make sure you loosen up your presser foot, that way your thread can go with you. And then we'll just start back right here. Make sure you're touching the ruler, and we'll tack it, and we'll just continue the circle. And so let me show you, let me take everything off. We'll cut our thread and get this all released so you guys can see what's going on. So if you don't want to take the pin out at this point, if you're still going to make more circles like out here, which you can definitely do, then I recommend that you cover your pin. You could leave it in there, but I want you to put the head of the pin cover right there. Put the pin more cover on there so you don't actually hurt yourself and that it remains very visible so you can see where the head of the pin is. All right, so we'll cut all these extra threads. We have lots of extra threads, but everything is tacked off. And now we have this really pretty wreath, and we have this free motion space. And I like this double right here. I like the double line. So out here, I think I would put that 1/4 inch more right here. And you'll have to play with whatever you need to find out what's the next one that you would want to put just a 1/4 inch echo. But you can see how that really changes the look. And right here, we'll put our free motion right into here, and then we would travel, and then we would continue it. And if you weren't sure how it would look and like where you would start, I would recommend that you draw it across here with a quilt safe marker, and then you sew it in. And then when you travel to this side, you can say, oh, I need to start down here, blah, 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 and then travel over to here and continue. And that's what's going to allow you to make these beautiful connections between the wreaths. And then, you know, maybe this guy will do the 1/4 inch echo here, and then he'll have rings that will come out here and that will start, you know, defining him. So he'll have a little bit of interplay right here between the two. And this is what kind of connects them. It makes it seem like they have some movement between them, because you can see that right here, if we cut this, that circle goes right into the design. Let me see if I can get that little guy. Oh, he's ornery. There we go. So you can see how that causes a little integration because the circle is interrupted by the design. So let me show you a little sample of what that looks like. Hang on just a second. So we're going to move out just a tiny bit so we can give you a better view of this area. So there we go. That'll let you see just a little bit more of the design all at once. So we did that same thing. So we have a circle channel and we put a fill in there. And then these are different circles on quilts with that 1/4 inch spacing. So we just did double circles right here. And then just like we showed you with that little star, when you get to a certain spot, you can leave the foot right in there, take the circles on quilts off, and I made it so that my circle touched right on this inner line. That's just a 1/4 inch space with your spacing gauge. You can put your big circle, and then I sewed a circle, and I went ahead and I marked where this would come back in right here. You can even use your quilt safe marker. So then as I went around and I sewed this circle, I traveled to there, and then I took the circle off and I put the circles on quilts back on, and I continued around. And one of the design benefits of having an interruption like this is it's hard to know if you get back to the end of the circle if you'll have enough space so that these will all be even instead of having like a little wonky one at the end, right? If you put an interruption, who cares, right? You just start on this side and you go around, and then who cares what happens because they don't have to match up. So that's another design reason why you might put some kind of an embellishment or an interruption of your design, because then it doesn't matter because they don't necessarily have to match up. You can see there he kind of looks a little wonky. He looks anemic. So maybe I would just put a curve and put like a little tip right there instead of trying to put a whole little spiral in there. Just put a tiny curl, and then he would be disappearing underneath this part of the circle. So, all right, so let's see. Oh, let's see where we're at. So what we can do is we can put some extra circle in here. I'll show you that 1/4 inch. So we'll just do that one more time, and you'll see over here that it'll end up intersecting, and then we'll jump over. And that's pretty much what we're aiming to show for today. So let's talk real quick about how you can decide what comes next. So this is the one that we actually sewed right here. So this is the 8.5 spacing. So the next one that we would need would be the 9. So let's pull that out. So with the circles on quilts, every time that you go up by a 1/2 inch, it's only a 1/4 inch. And why is that? The reason that it makes sense, because every time you go up a 1/2, it's a 1/4 inch on this side of the circle, and then it would be a 1/4 inch on the other side of the circle. So it's a 1/2 inch, but you're only seeing a 1/4 inch on each side. So you can use that information as you're building your designs to help you know what's next, or you can just stick them on there and just say, oh, this fits, I like that. That's just another way to do it. But you know, if you want the math, that's the math relationship. All right, let's go ahead and we'll get him right on that circle. And I'll hold these just to give us a nice secure stitch when we start. So we'll just tack it. So right here, this is where we're going to interrupt. So I will go ahead and I'll take a few stitches to tack. Just pick your needle up. You're always going to release that presser foot so that you have enough space. And once we've rotated this, we can right away see, do we have enough room right there? I think we do. I think we have enough room to start the echo right back here. So I'm going to grab this thread so we can make sure that we have a nice tight stitch when we start. And we'll get our needle lined up right on the edge of this other wreath right there. Tack it. All right, just so you can see what we're doing, we're lining up on this outside edge. So one thing about the circles that I'll tell you, it's very easy to kind of torque the circle a little bit and push and pull. Try to let the fabric relax and then just press straight down. And that'll prevent any twisting and turning of the sandwich and hopefully give you the best prettiest circle that you can have. So we'll go right up to the design here and we'll tack it. Lift your needle up, and then you're just going to scoot around. Try to get your needle right back into the edge of the design right here, looking right in that hole, and we'll tack it with a few stitches. And I can't really see where I'm going, but let's see if I can get 1 or 2 more stitches in there. There we go. All right, we'll pull that bobbin thread up and get that cut. So I hope that this gives you some good ideas for how you can pair your circles with your beautiful wreath designs. So you can see that having this echo around here creates a little bit of an integration now between these two designs as well, that this one now looks like it's underneath. So this center one is the foreground, and then these will be underneath that. And then the ones on the corner, in fact, will be underneath this. So it gives a little bit of a three-dimensional impact to your design. And then you can put circles in here, wreath, any kind of free motion, anything that you want to do, and you can use your little circles. If you want to keep your circles right in the center, you can use your quilt safe marker and your circles on quilts and your stitching line discs, and you can mark the center line of this space so that you can use your little tiny circle rulers and just put circles along there if you wanted to. Here's an example of how that looks. And they just have to fit into the space like that. So the circles are going to touch at the center, but you can't go all the way around because this is on a curve, not a straight line. The way you would have to do it is start here and you would sew around until you touch the edge right there, not to the middle, but till you touch, and then come back to the center and then around until you touch and back to the center, and you would be able to fill in these beautiful circles in that channel. So you can use between the line circles or any of the simple circles. And I've even used the artisan circle, works very well for this too, but you may have trouble getting it to match up exactly to your spacing. Whereas if you just use the regular circle, you can manipulate, its fit however you want to. So, alrighty. So real quick, if you guys have any questions, I'm going to just check through the feed really quickly and see. Oh, let's see. So much to play with, I know. Need to get both sets of, yeah, so Sandy, thank you. I do have all of the crosshair marks because every time that you try something new, they really do change what you get. If you have the 6-point, the 5-point, and the 8-point. And one of the great ways to get a lot more out of your templates is if you use the Crosshair book by Leonie West. She has hundreds of designs in there that maybe just are using the same template, but you can find so many different ways to create a design just by using different crosshairs, and they are so versatile. So they give you a lot of design options. So Teresa Mitchell, micro quilting. Let's see if I have a sample of that somewhere. Yes, I do. Micro quilting means that the quilting is very small. That would be an example of micro quilting. Very, very tiny. Even this I would still consider to be kind of micro quilting right there. And this is free motion. So right here, these, see how tiny they are? So what that means is that your stitches are very close together, maybe 14, 15, 16 stitches per inch. Generally speaking, you would want to use a thinner thread and a smaller needle, and it allows you to fill in small areas, which gives you this bi-level definition of puff and compressed. So that's just another word for quilting, but it's a style. It's a style of quilting where your quilting is tighter and much smaller to make an individual design. All right, so let's see. Oh yes, Barb Olson, this is my whole cloth. I'm gonna turn this into something because once I started planning and thinking about how it was gonna look, I got really excited. Let's see. With the new math, oh no, it's easy. 24, you're using an 8-point. 18, you're using a 6-point. That's for Patsy Wilkerson. And Patsy, this is a great opportunity for the older generation math to commune with the new math, okay? Share your quilting knowledge with your younger generation. Pass it on to a friend who's younger than you. Pass it on to a grandchild. We want to keep this living art breathing and innovating and pass it on to the next generation. Okay, let's see. Designs crossing. Lynn Dean, I absolutely love that idea. And so the concept there is really creating that three-dimensional element with your design by layering it. Thank you. Okay, you guys, well, we are close to time, and I think it's too close for us to start something new. So I would ask you guys, please, please, please like, comment, and share. That way my boss knows that I'm doing something that is useful. One of our things that I want to share with you is we have really ramped up our virtual education opportunities through our So Steady page. I'm sure that many of you have seen that. And I am going to be teaching several upcoming virtual classes. Some of them are even free. They are mostly beginning ruler work classes. Most of them are. One I have coming up is a deeper dive, which includes Fun and Fancy and the ruler work kit. So if you want to see some more of that material, or you need a refresher, or you have somebody you want to share that with who is interested but has not had an opportunity for instruction, please go ahead and look on our So Steady website and see that content. We do encourage you to try to sign up if your local shop is hosting one of these events. And if they're not, we want you to go and call them and say, hey, you need to host one of these events for us. So that way we can keep our connection with our local quilt shops and keep them going, because we know how important they are. You know, nobody likes picking out fabric online. And if you don't have a good dealer who can help you with your machine and who knows you, then that's often a big problem. So we want to make sure that we're keeping those connections open and helping those businesses. So please look for that. And I will give you a little hint. Next week, my plan is to work with the artisan circles and other related artisan curves templates, which are so fantastic and again are circle oriented. So I will be planning a design with them, and it may be 2 parts because there's a lot of content with that material. So we may end up with a 2-part series for that as well. Thank you all so much for being here. I hope you have a wonderful day and happy quilting. I will be doing Free Motion Fridays on my personal page. If you're interested, it's only about 10 or 15 minutes on Fridays at 10 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. All right. Thank you so much, guys. Bye-bye.